President Bola Tinubu has approved the launch of the first phase of the Consumer Credit Scheme in Nigeria. That's a program designed to offer credit facilities to working citizens in the country. According to a statement issued by Presidential Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, that's Ajuri Ngelale, in Abuja on Tuesday, the initiative would be implemented in stages, beginning with civil servants before being extended to the general public. Financial expert Gbolahan Olojede joins us now to discuss the launch of this scheme and how to ensure its effective implementation. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, good afternoon. Nice to be here.
Great. Now, of course, we know that consumer credit has its potentials when it comes to stimulating economic growth, but also carries the risk of over-indebtedness. Now, how would you say we should approach it when it comes to striking a balance between promoting credit accessibility and ensuring responsible borrowing practices?
Okay, I think the cautious approach that the government itself has mentioned, launching the program in two phases, is part of what is necessary. With the civil servants, you know how much they earn. So you can determine that, your repayment every month must not be more than 1/3 of your total, your net pay. That's a control, for example. And so when you roll out with that kind of a control, using the civil servant, you have some learnings which you can cut over when you're coming into the larger space beyond the civil servant. So essentially, it is how you approach the conditions, eligibility conditions, and all those other things around repayment capacity that will help to drive a situation in which we don't go into, we don't push people into obligations that they will not be able to fulfill at the end of the day.
All right, let's talk about fulfilling obligations because, one of the biggest, shall I say, incentives is around home ownership, purchase of vehicles, education, healthcare, amongst other things that they're hoping that people will be able to access this credit for. Now, when we unpack, of course, a lot of the details are still unraveling.
Sketchy, yeah.
Yes, but it does seem that a repayment period of 6 months is what has been set for now. Of course, interest rates are still a question mark. But we do know the current climate with interest rates in Nigeria at the moment. Does this make sense? Is this realistic? How many people can afford this? Are we not setting ourselves up? A million questions, I know, but...
Well, don't forget that there's an agency of government that is going to midwife on the implementation of this. It is possible that government is going to provide funding that is not at that scary rate that you're talking about. NPR is 24.47 already. By the time you put a margin on 24.47, it's unaffordable. But where it is government stepping out first, even when the market was doing 20, government could do 10 if it wants to. It is possible. But when we get a more detailed implementation plan, we will know exactly. But I think I read somewhere where it was mentioned that, the financial institution will be able to access fund from that agency. What that seems to mean is that the agency in itself knows that it has limitations. It cannot implement this thing. So it wants to do it through the financial institutions. So you give money to the financial institution do what you call on-lending to those guys. So if I give it to you at 10, you put a spread on it, maybe it's 12. I'm just using arbitrary numbers now. 10% might not be realistic. But you put a spread on it and you give it to those guys. That could be one of the ways to implement that kind of a program.
Okay. Now, when it comes to this credits matter, we understand that the biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges that faces developing countries, is the absence of a robust credit scoring systems and data on borrowers' credit worthiness. That's an issue.
Yeah.
So how can this be addressed in order to prevent, improper lending practices and ensure that credit is actually extended to those who can actually repay and don't see it as a gift, maybe?
I think it's an opportunity for us to actually build some of those data that we will need. So when you begin to get people into that system, when I did graduate studies in the US, I've never been there. I was born here, I grew up here. But when I got there, I was asked you need to build your credit history. Go and take this credit. So I went and bought a computer from Dell And that was the first thing I did. And then over that, you begin to build a credit score. And at some point in time, you can actually request for your credit score. So people will need to get into that credit system for us to develop a proper credit score system in the market. We already have the credit bureaus there anyway, but that does not exactly they don't exactly do credit scoring. But they keep a record of people who have borrowed in the system and how they have performed on those borrowings, which is also very important for a credit system. If someone is a serial defaulter or has defaulted on previous loan, you know how to keep him at arm's length when you're dealing with that kind of a person. So that is already there, but we can build upon that by this kind of a scheme. Bring more people into that system and then start to build a scoring system for us.
Right now, there's already a lot of credit, issuance of credit happening in this economy at the moment. A lot of it being driven by the microfinance banks, some from the commercial banks, but I'm talking personal consumption, home, personal credit. A lot of it is coming through these microfinance institutions. When I look at, I always like to look at examples across the continent. You look at a country like South Africa, for example. Some of the most recent reports from South Africa show that 40% of South Africans are now having to borrow just to be able to buy groceries because of the pressure of the cost of living crisis. So when you look at the current economic climate, is this really the time to encourage people to get credit when we know that a very significant part of it is going to go towards just daily necessities? Are people really, do you get what
I understand what you're saying, but you see, you can control what people use their credit for. In South Africa that you referred to, okay, they're using the money maybe even to buy food or whatever. But here, you want them to be able to use it, say, to acquire a car or whatever. So you can ensure that it's Nissan or it's whoever is Jack that I'm paying the money to. So you can't even do anything about what you're consuming. And then I must see that capacity to repay based on historical income information. It is based on that I value money. You see, if you take a typical Western country, an American student who has a job can buy a car. And what does he need? He shows his earnings on a statement, and then he goes give it to a car dealer who gives him a car note, and he takes the car home. And if he doesn't pay, you know what it means? If he doesn't pay, they come and take the car from him. As simple as that. So it is not impossible. Of course, in those economies, those are not driven by government. It's actually driven by the private sector.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, by private. But here, it appears as if we're stepping out cautiously, and we might need government to help us. If you have the private sector to initiate it right now, they can't do it if NPR is 24.75. It's simply not possible. But we must get there. The first time that I used a brand new car in this country, I wouldn't have been able to afford it. It was because a particular bank said, you can come and buy and pay me over this number of years. That was the only way it was possible. And it is so with a lot of workers in Nigeria. If you make it available and affordable, they will take those credit opportunities and it will stimulate consumption within the system. That is the way these things work. And once you are responsible with your credit, there's no guessing how much you could make out of, have a better quality of life. It's not as if when people have better qualities of life, even in America, some of them are on the credit card.
Exactly. Like I said, some people are borrowing to buy groceries.
That's an extreme situation. I mean, borrowing to buy groceries is an extreme situation. I hope we don't get there.
Oh, well, it looks like we might already be there, but we might just not know.
No, we won't get there.
Okay, amen. But now I'd like to thank you so much for your insight, development economist Gbolahan Olojede. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you as always. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.